All right, close your eyes for just a second. I want you to imagine two completely different versions of your life. And they both start with two very different mornings. Because how you wake up sets the tone for your entire existence. And it all begins with the room around you.
In scenario A, you wake up and bam, clutter everywhere. Your phone's immediately blowing up with notifications. Yesterday's half-finished work is scattered all over your desk, and there's a pile of laundry in the corner practically whispering, "Yeah, you're never going to get to me." You're exhausted before your feet even hit the floor. Now contrast that with scenario B. You open your eyes to a room bathed in soft morning light. Your phone is tucked away on airplane mode. Your desk is completely clear, holding just one single notebook and a pen. You take a deep breath. You feel entirely in control. Which of those setups is going to build a better you? Seriously, your space dictates your mental state aggressively and constantly.
Think of your environment kind of like a medieval castle staircase. Castle builders intentionally designed these staircases to spiral clockwise. Why? Well, because most soldiers were right-handed, so an enemy trying to fight their way up had to round the curve of the inner wall, which completely exposed them to an attack. Meanwhile, the defenders at the top use that exact same inner wall as a partial shield, giving them all the room to swing freely. Your current environment is doing exactly this right now. It's either actively exposing you to distraction, or it's acting as an impenetrable shield for your focus.
So, let's keep this momentum going. We're going to rapidly map out a 6-step blueprint to basically reprogram your subconscious. We're hitting 1. Auditing your space. 2. Eliminating visual clutter. 3. Chromatic priming. 4. Sensory landscapes. 5. Architecting behavior layout. And finally, 6. The active partner. Let's dive right in. Step 1. Audit your space, breaking the blindness of habituation. Listen. This first step isn't about cleaning, it's pure diagnosis. Over time, your brain pulls this trick called sensory adaptation. It filters out constant stimuli to save energy. You literally become functionally blind to your own mess. But your subconscious, it registers all of it. And it's running a background program that says chaos is the standard. We have to break that blindness. To do this, we audit specific functional zones to catch any mismatched signals. You've got restoration zones for deep recovery. If you have work materials in there, you're signaling your brain to stay on high alert. You've got productivity zones for deep work. Leaving laundry there just welcomes distraction. Nourishment zones are for fuel. A cookie jar on the counter makes unhealthy choices the default path of least resistance. And transition zones, like hallways, are mental buffers. By the way, working from bed? That is the ultimate mismatch signal. It fundamentally scrambles your subconscious.
The crucial point here is identifying the specific triggers sabotaging these zones. You know those someday piles? The unread books, the unused hobby gear? Those are not neutral objects. They are literal monuments to failure. Every single time you walk past them, they actively whisper, "Hey, you don't finish what you start." Same goes for holding on to broken items, just in case. It silently broadcasts a scarcity mindset, telling your brain you don't trust you'll have resources in the future.
All right, step 2. Eliminate visual clutter, the physical subtraction. Now that we've audited the space, we have to aggressively transition into uninstalling these limiting programs. Every single observable item you see or touch is actively fighting for a piece of your cognitive bandwidth.
The reason most of us completely fail at decluttering is the cognitive paralysis of choice. It's too much. To bypass that, we set up a brilliant dashboard of 6 distinct disposal categories ahead of time. Absolute deletes go straight to the trash. Think broken electronics. Utility transfer means donating items to neutralize that just-in-case fallacy. Cashback means selling things, like old phones, to beat sunk cost guilt. Relocation simply puts items back where they belong. Sentimental hold is a strictly bounded memory box. And finally, the decide later box is for those overwhelming items. Date stamp it for 30 days, and if you don't open it by then, it's gone. No questions asked.
Your physical actions here need to be fast, fluid, and kinetic. Stage the 6 categories, and then apply the ruthless, emotion-free one-touch rule. You pick an item up, and you literally do not put it down until it is in one of those boxes. Then, process them immediately. Take the trash out, load the donations in your trunk. This builds incredible, undeniable momentum that frees up massive cognitive capacity.
Moving to step 3, chromatic priming, managing energy transmitters. Okay, so your room is cleared out, but right now it's just a blank canvas. We have to actively program it, because colors and lights are not just decorations, they are active energy transmitters.
Light temperatures physically hack our circadian rhythm way before we even form a conscious thought. Cool spectrum light, that crisp blue-white overhead stuff, mimics the midday sun. It naturally boosts serotonin, suppressing drowsiness and priming your mind for deep cognitive work. On the flip side, warm spectrum light, those yellow oranges from lamps, mimics the sunset. That triggers melatonin, silently programming your body for safety and physical recovery.
And long before we even had language, color was a primal survival cue. Our subconscious maps these colors as associative anchors. Light blues and cyans signal clarity, absolutely perfect for your productivity zone. Greens reduce anxiety and promote visual harmony. Reds raise your heart rate for physical activation, but you want to use that sparingly. Yellows drive optimism and creative energy. And deep blues or indigos, they signal total disengagement and safety, exactly what you want in your bedroom.
Step 4. Sensory landscapes. Designing the invisible environment. We've mastered the visual, but now we have to shift focus to the invisible environment, sound and smell. While sight processes information, sound and smell process your internal state. They bypass your logical brain completely and wire straight into the limbic system, controlling emotion and memory instantly.
So we have to intentionally design our soundscape. Curated programming cues, like nature sounds or white noise, act as auditory anchors. They promote flow and mathematically mask out disruptive background noise. But sabotaging triggers, traffic, a buzzing appliance, distant human conversations, they force your brain to constantly scan for danger, silently draining your willpower and spiking your cortisol levels. Unchosen noise is the enemy of focus.
And then there's your smellscape. Scent is literally your body's fastest path to memory. Ask yourself, is your environment scent signaling alertness, or is it signaling biological neglect? Are you actively using scents like citrus and mint to drive intense, non-fatiguing focus, or is stale air and dust subtly normalizing a state of stagnation? Because if your environment smells stagnant, your subconscious is going to accept stagnation as your default identity.
Step 5. Architect behavior layout. Flow versus barriers. This brings us to the absolute most structural layer of the blueprint, making good habits inevitable by manipulating the physical layout of your room. We are transitioning from sensory inputs to physical pathways.
The foundation of this is the singular focus zone. Your desk is only for work. Your couch is only for reading. When you rigidly exclude contradictory items from a space, you enforce a massive state-to-space association. When you enter that zone, your subconscious never has to burn a single calorie deciding what to do next. The environment automatically triggers the state. To enforce these zones, we use this brilliant dual strategy of flow and barriers. The architecture of activation is about building ramps for desired actions, creating a zero inertia flow. You want to read more? Put a book and a reading lamp perfectly positioned on your pillow. It's the path of least resistance. Conversely, the architecture of obstruction builds literal walls for sabotaging habits. Want to stop doom scrolling? Your phone isn't just turned off. It's locked in an opaque box entirely across the room. You force your subconscious to expend maximum effort for a bad habit and zero effort for a good one.
Finally, step 6, the active partner, engineering your growth. This brings us to the climax of the whole system. What we've done here is facilitate the transition from being just a passive inhabitant of your home to a psychological engineer of your life. Let's rapidly recap this kinetic blueprint. We started by realizing spaces aggressively dictate our mental states. We audited our space to break habituation. We eliminated clutter to free up cognitive capacity. We used chromatic priming to transmit energy. We curated sensory landscapes with sound and smell. And we architected our layout for flawless behavioral flow, which brings us to the ultimate superpower of environment design. Look, human willpower is finite. For most of us, it is completely exhausted by 5 p.m. But your newly architected environment, it works 24/7. When your motivation is tapped out and sleeping, your space remains on duty, continuously providing a physical feedback loop that you are a person of order and intention. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. You don't just live in your environment lives in you. Take a look at the room you are sitting in right now. Look at the colors, the clutter, the layout. What is it silently commanding you to become? And more importantly, are you ready to change the broadcast?